Hi everyone, it's Nick, and I'm here to discuss a topic that is facing one of Nintendo's most popular series, and from the title, you know it's Pokemon. I've been a lifelong fan until recently, and I want to talk about what some of the big issues that the Pokemon company faces after getting through 7 generations of Pokemon games. This video is to outline the main problems they have, what my opinion is on them, what they should do, and my expectations of the new Pokemon Let's Go, Eevee and Pikachu. To give a basic overview of what they're seeing is that sales are deteriorating with every new generation that gets released. They are a company, and they do need money to survive. We kind of forget that sometimes. So I'll get the data out of the way for now. Ever since the start of Generation 1, sales have started to decline ever so steadily, with a slight rise in Generation 4, which I would credit due to the success of the Nintendudez. This is only showing Generations 1 through 6, as this graph that I'm showing right now is, but Generation 7 is showing a slight rise just like Gen 4 did, with it currently being around 24 million sales. I kind of credit this though due to Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon giving it a boost, because X and Y, just the regular copies, sold 16.3 million compared to the 16.1 million for the regular Sun and Moon. Ultra Sun and Moon boosted that about 8 million sales. So that's all the hard numbers, we got that out of the way. So why is that interest going away? Well, I have a couple of reasons. Problem number 1. Which audience do you cater to? The first Pokemon games released in the 1990s, with a lot of the die-hard fans playing these games when they were just kids. Some of my friends would play these games at recess in grade school, or before the school day started. These are the same people who were in awe of the lifelike 3D models that Pokemon Stadium gave, and got super excited about the news of Gold and Silver, also Ruby and Sapphire. The games were marketed to us, and they got us big time. The people who played these games at that time are now in their mid-20s, like me. Some, even in the earlier generations, found how complex the simple battle system could be mastered, and started taking it a competitive route. Again, not everyone, but they did it to keep it interesting. The battle system was a combination of easy to learn, but difficult to master. Anybody could pick up these games, but you could really tell who has a deep, complex understanding of this battle system. The people who played these games didn't have any explanations for the type advantages or evolutions, and let the gameplay teach them how to play. For some reason, they didn't keep this rationale when making their later games. They kept making it for that younger audience, and the quote-unquote older group of players started to lose interest. Marketing these games for a younger audience started the insane amount of momentum they had when they started with these games on the Game Boy. And now it's kind of starting to stagnate, and you're starting to see that with the sales of X and Y, the Sun and Moon. Problem number 2. Other RPGs that change with every iteration. I consider Pokemon to be the easiest RPG to pick up and play. And again, we talked about that before. The only other RPG series that I can think of that has remained almost the same like Pokemon is Dragon Quest. And that's not a bad thing. Personally, I love the battle system, but people will lose interest if they feel the series isn't evolving with the newer installments. Pokemon has tried to keep things fresh with double battles, triple battles, mega evolutions, Z moves, and again, I love watching VGC, but that doesn't really do enough to combat other RPGs in my mind. The RPGs now, there's more of a movement to more of an active, non-turn-based kind of battling. Final Fantasy is probably the perfect example of how they keep making the combat system feel more fresh and modern as times go on. And they even left the turn-based battling system after Final Fantasy III. Final Fantasy 15 combat-wise doesn't look anything like the original Final Fantasy does for the NES. After reading a couple articles, people feel that Pokemon should do something similar to make it more appealing to modern gamers, but this is easily a double-edged sword. Final Fantasy 13 and 15 has pissed a lot of people off who were that core audience that loved the active time battling system and yearned for the games that were built with that mechanic. These games obviously have their pros and cons, and you know how I feel about some of the Final Fantasy games, but the people that have started with Pokemon and wanted an evolution of games will probably switch to a game series that doesn't feel that the combat is getting stale to them. Problem number 3. The number of generations. Interests fade when you have a franchise that goes on for this long. While Pokemon doesn't have the number of iterations as Mega Man, Dragon Quest, Final Fantasy, or The Legend of Zelda, it does face the same issue. Mega Man fans got pretty mad at the later installments of the Mega Man X series. kind of talking about X7 here, and I already mentioned what has happened with Final Fantasy. With every installment, people might get turned off by some minor detail, like the Pokemon Trubbish. I actually had a couple of friends who got pretty mad that there was a garbage Pokemon, or maybe get hooked on a different game series. Most diehard fans will stick with you, but everyone has that point where they want to play a game that just feels different to them. Number 4 is the spin-off games. And Pokemon Go is the main game I want to talk about here, because technically it is a spin-off and it's not even for a console like most Pokemon games are. It's a mobile game, and it took the world by storm. Other spin-off games do not really impact the mainline games that much, but this one clearly did due to the release of Pokemon Let's Go, Eevee, and Pikachu being announced. We all saw how popular Pokemon Go was, and it's seeing a re-emergence with the new remake for the Nintendo Switch. It's planning to incorporate the catching of Pokemon Go with the traditional turn-based battling that the series always had. To quote Miley Cyrus, it's the best of both worlds. While personally I didn't get into Pokemon Go, I know, blasphemy, I think this is a genius move on their part. It resurrects Pokemon Go, even though that it still has a lot of active players nowadays, and gives the classic Pokemon game experience that those older players want. These are all positive so far, but the issue is, where do they go from here? Will this be a one-time thing? Or will it be a crazy popular thing that takes away resources from the main team that's cranking out these mainline titles? The core mechanics of the game can get blurred and cause a similar response to what happened with Final Fantasy, with people jumping into the games now with the release of Pokemon Let's Go. Problem number 5 is the console sales. This is actually a problem that Pokemon Go didn't have because basically everyone in Western culture has a phone. If a console doesn't sell well, mainly handheld in this case because that's where most Pokemon games get released, the main series and extension will definitely get affected. Luckily, Nintendo is dominant with the handheld market, and this doesn't really affect them too much. You do see it though with the small peak in Generation 4 sales. Nintendo has been smart, and they've only released mainline Pokemon games on platforms where this isn't an issue, really. However, PC and mobile are becoming very popular ways to play. So, if console sales deteriorate, where will the mainline Pokemon games go? Now here's my take on why I'm losing interest in Pokemon. The issues that I talked about above are pretty general and not very game specific, so now I'm going to get down to the nitty gritty. The first and biggest ones is handholding the series has become familiar with, mainly Generation 6 and 7. I give passes to the later RPGs, I'm talking more difficult combat systems to understand, like Xenoblade Chronicles, but that's mainly due that the combat system has a lot more depth that it offers, and to understand all of it is easier to pace yourself along that way. Pokemon doesn't really need that in my mind. I was able to understand it at an extremely young age, and I know people can without all the tutorials that they have. I'm mainly talking about the issues with Generation 6 and 7 here, though. I loved Generation 6. I loved Pokemon X and Y, as you probably already know if you're a veteran of this channel. But I do not need to have every damn thing explained to me like I'm a kid. Pokemon is not a difficult game to figure out. To cater to both audiences, they really should have an option to turn off the tutorial stuff because it's completely unnecessary to anybody who's played one Pokemon game. I got absorbed into Pokemon Red version because of the wonder of this unknown world with unique creatures that I've never seen before. Then I got to befriend them, and now they're my traveling companions. That's what's so cool about Pokemon to me. Endless possibilities, even though you're in that linear game. And you want to try to replay it to try a different team. This one might just be me, but legendaries are just stupid now. I no longer care about them. In the first 2 generations, the legendary Pokemon were few in number, and they were tough. From Generation 3 and on, they just became saturated. They're just ordinary Pokemon. When I was younger, I saw legendary Pokemon as tough Pokemon to hunt down, and man, I looked forward to that marathon battle just to capturing them. I had no struggle in Gen 6 and 7, never used a Master Ball, and it left me wondering, is this really it? I like most of the fixes they've made so far in the games too. Getting rid of HM moves, TM moves are now unlimited uses, online battling and trading is fantastic, but those two really take me out of the experience that I used to love from Pokemon. All of those other problems I mentioned throughout the video are important, but I personally consider Sun and Moon the breaking point for me. Take out all the unnecessary tutorials, give me a deeper story like Black and White, and let me explain the world without all the damn hand-holding. So to put the TLDR in a kind of way, if you're ever reading stuff online, right here, I hate the handholding. And again, I give passes to bigger games because they have more to explain. Pokemon doesn't have that. And any game can really get you with cutscene and all that stuff, but that's not the fun of Pokemon to me. The fun of Pokemon is exploring. I don't care about all these cutscenes that you work on and trying to wow me with a sense of a great animation and of that Pokemon battle. You can do that in other ways. You don't need to do that in tutorials. That's one of the big ones for me. And now that legendaries are just stupid, and yeah, I might be offending people, but yes, legendaries are stupid now. Yeah, there's so many other ones, yes, there's event Pokemon and everything, but there's no struggle. There's no really fight for it. I think maybe when I was catching Yveltal in Pokemon Y, I maybe threw like 3 Pokeballs and got him on my 3rd try. He had Oblivion Wing. He had a recovery move. It's the main legendary of the game, and you're basically handing to me on a silver platter. Just go, yeah, you want him? Here you go. What's the point in that? Now remember, this video is coming from a person who's a lifelong fan of the series, whose interest has died a lot recently. I think Pokemon Let's Go is a step in the right direction. It blends 2 worlds, mobile and console, and honestly I do hope this sells very well. One of the things is I don't want to see any DLC for this game, because I think this game's experience has a huge aspect of it as playing Pokemon Go to get your team, and then bringing them into the other world to conquer the Pokemon League. I think that's what I would do if I had that game, or if I planned to get that game when it came out. I think that's what the fun of this game is, and that's what I think that will attract a lot of people to it. It blends both worlds, and even if you only like playing Pokemon Go, or only like playing Pokemon Let's Go or the console games, you might want to try it out for a little bit, or you might have a friend that will be convincing you like, hey, try this game out, I think you'll like it. It's a step in the right direction, but personally, I don't think I'm going to get it for a while. Unless there's Coliseum or XD, Gale of Darkness DLC, because those are some of my favorite spin-offs, okay? Because Shadow Pokemon are awesome. Don't care about that. I'm excited to see how the reviews will go for it too. As I said before, I'm definitely not getting it when it launches, and you guys know about that because we talked about that in the video before, but I can be swayed if these issues get addressed. So, again, thanks for watching. This is Nick, signing off.